Welcome to the Enduro Method Podcast. Joshua Rempel here today, and I'm going to talk a little bit about dealing with or overcoming an injury. So this is something that I've currently kind of been going through last, I think I'm about 9.5 weeks out from getting hurt, and so I figured it might be helpful to some of those out there to kind of go over. Obviously, it'll definitely be some personal experience being so recent for me, and then maybe some ways that I could have done things a little bit better, where I'm at and what it's looking like so far. So again, 9.5 weeks out, I ended up getting my little finger smashed between a handlebar and a stump. Basically, it was cut off at handlebar height on the side of the trail. Broke my, I think it was a fifth metatarsal. I'm not sure if that's right. Anyways, little finger bone, right at the knuckle, and smashed it in like 6 pieces. So immediately when it happened, I knew it was bad. I knew it wasn't like something I was just gonna brush off. So kind of from immediate reaction, which was mostly just anger, and knowing that at the beginning of our riding season here in Idaho, at least for sure, like we were still not even able to quite ride locally due to snow. And we only get like a 3.5 month window of maybe 4, basically, before we're snowed out of our local areas again. And so knowing that that was kind of already cut short just from what it felt like when I got that impact, it was pretty upsetting, and knowing that I was going to be sitting out for a while. So anyways, definitely a lot of this will be a little bit personal experience, and like I said, kind of hoping to give an outline of maybe some better ways to approach it. But starting with an injury or something that's a setback training wise or riding wise, or what you're passionate about doing, the first thing is definitely taking stock. So the severity of the injury or strain or sprain or something like that is definitely going to impact how it affects you as an individual. So if it's something that's, maybe a torn ACL or something like that, that's going to be quite a road to recovery, you're going to have definitely a different outlook than you would on something like maybe you sprained a finger or twisted an ankle or something, to where that recovery is a little bit shorter. So I think the first part is kind of assessing what happened and what your timeline looks like is a good place to start. And then along with that, definitely allowing yourself some time to mourn, basically. So when it first happens, giving yourself a couple weeks, probably somewhere in there, to really kind of just let things be. Try not to, well, I'm not even going to say try not to get stressed out. Basically, get stressed out, get angry, get upset, feel all those feelings, and try and just let them happen. Because if you sit there and try and repress them or bury them, you're kind of just not dealing with the current situation you're in to begin with. So really kind of just let things go as best as you're able. I mean, I know for me, the first 2 weeks was very, again, I was just pissed and angry. The night that it happened, again, just very upset. I ended up going to the ER, sitting in there for a while. I don't think I said more than like 10 words total to Dane for a 24-hour period, even though she was trying to be super helpful and supportive. I just didn't have anything to say. And so it took a couple days before I was able to even really start talking again. And then even then, I just didn't know what my future held yet, as I was kind of trying to find a doctor to go to, or specialty surgeon. And so once I was kind of in that pipeline, it helped for me to be able to start to formulate a timeline of what this was going to look like. I got hurt on Sunday night. I ended up getting into a hand specialist on Tuesday, was scheduled for surgery that Thursday. And then, so that whole first week was kind of a whirlwind of, I wouldn't even say emotions. It was just more kind of a blur because you're just sitting, it's just like hurry up and wait, right? And so I don't even think it had kind of set in yet, like what my true recovery time was going to be and being able to get back on the bike until maybe a week out from surgery. So I ended up having to get 4 pins put into that tiny little bone there. And so once I kind of woke up, I mean, they kind of said I'm going to have pins, but once I kind of woke up, had the pins in there, and then a couple days of sitting around, it kind of really set in of what this was going to look like and how long this was going to take. So I had pins in my hand for 6 weeks. And then after that, I probably had, from what I was told, thinking at least another 6 weeks of PT before I would be back on the bike. So like a 12-week or 3 months kind of recovery time. And so once I was past that early stage of just hurry up, get stuff done, and I was able to sit with it for a little bit, that's actually when it was the most depressing. So it was probably another 2 weeks like post-surgery before I even started doing anything again. I was just trying to stay positive, but in reality just kind of upset and tooling around and just like I said, trying to do the best I could, but also realizing that it is what it is and I got to deal with it. And what am I going to do to, try and turn this into a positive? And that thought took a little bit of time. And I would say you got to allow yourself some time to not, or at least to be able to wrap your head around and get to that point, because it was super easy, like right when it happened, to be real, that first week a little bit kind of positive, like, oh yeah, no, okay, it's just a little setback, this and that. But after I got through the surgery and it really set in, I got pins, okay, this is going to be 6 weeks plus whatever. And all in all, this is probably not that long of a it's definitely from a hand standpoint, not a great bone to break, but on the flip side, it's working out and looks pretty positive as far as recovery standpoint. But being able to, really accept it and allow yourself to be able to come up with something positive out of it, I think actually takes a little bit of time. At least it did for me. There was no way in the first, 2 weeks post-surgery where I'm like, yeah, there's anything positive out of this. This is just bullshit and it sucks. So I think when you can reframe it and you can start thinking about ways to come out of this better, then you're on the road, at least mentally, to making more use of it for sure. So accepting reality, it is what it is, and how are you going to come out of it on the other side? And for me, after 2 or 3 weeks of kind of being a derelict and not getting much done, food went to crap, hanging out, like definitely drank more, wasn't being productive on weekends, just kind of like I was getting work done, but I wasn't doing anything physical yet. I was still kind of just moping around. I would say also that I was told not to get heart rate up because if my fingers started throbbing, that wasn't good. And so I was kind of in a place where I wasn't quite really allowed to do much. So I did have to kind of just sit around, but I also wasn't making good lifestyle or recovery choices during that time, partly just because I was still kind of upset from it and being a child a little bit. But, it is what it is. So that was my kind of story, at least for the first 2 or 3 weeks. I feel like, everybody's going to have their own way of going about it, and you could definitely do that in a much healthier and better fashion. But, like I said, it kind of is what it is. And so once you're able to kind of get out of that first stage, I think, of just being pissed and dealing with it, then you're able to kind of look in the future. And I think one of the questions for me was, how am I going to be when I come out of this and I am able to get back to being on the bike and and what's that going to look like? And the last thing I wanted that to look like was a big regression, from a training standpoint and lifestyle standpoint to how I went in and got injured. So I definitely didn't want to spend 2 months to 3 months of inactivity and being slothful and not caring about nutrition. So I kind of right around probably week 3, started kind of cleaning it up a little bit, getting back to it. I was able to start, doing a little bit of hiking. Because again, from a blood flow standpoint, I couldn't really get that finger throbbing. So I'd like to have to hike with my hand above my head, take a lot of breaks, stuff like that. So once I was able to participate in a little bit more physical activity, that definitely helped. That definitely helped the mental state, everything else. When you're active, you definitely just kind of want to eat better in general. So all those things just started to build on itself. And then I really kind of created a picture of how I wanted to be when I came out of it. And like I said, I didn't want to be worse off than when I went in. So they had started to give me a little bit of framework. So I was able to kind of create a vision that started to get me excited for when I was able to return to activity. And from that, I actually started to build out some longer term plans and goals that I think I had kind of been putting on a back burner. At least for me, one of the things that did come out was when I am active and doing all the things I kind of want to be doing, it's easy to get complacent, I think. And so the bright side that I finally was able to come around and see once I was basically forced off the bike, forced out of the training for at least a little bit, is that I really was able to take a look at where I was before the injury. And even though I was kind of doing the things I wanted to do, I definitely wasn't meeting some of the standards that I kind of hold for myself too. And so this was a really good spotlight on that, because I was kind of forced into this inactivity and just sitting alone with my thoughts and goals and all that stuff. So as much as I almost hate to say it because it's so cliche, a lot of good has come for me personally from being sidelined for a little bit. So I was able to definitely reevaluate where I was going, and where I want to go. Yeah. So from that, probably at the 4-week mark or so, 5-week for sure, I got my pins out a little bit early because they were causing some discomfort and they were starting to become loose. So I think I got them out at like 5.5-week mark. And once those came out, that was huge. I was able to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel a little bit more. That also meant I was able to really start getting into PT and treating recovery like training instead of just, sitting, waiting. And so that was big as far as, again, being able to see that kind of future become a little brighter. And that was when I was able to really start honing in on cleaning up the diet, hitting PT. I was also able to start training a little more. So, I only had an injury on my right hand. So I got the rest of my body to be able to do things. I was actually blown away at how much it did inhibit that with the little finger, what I could do from a push-pull standpoint, upper body-wise. Of course, I could do it on the left side, but trying to get my right side, my arm, chest, and back on the right side to be able to get used was actually fairly challenging because everything just relies around your wrist, and when you can't extend the wrist or grip stuff, it definitely changed how I was had to approach some training for that. But easy enough just to do lower body stuff too. So was able to get back in the gym and start doing that. That definitely helped mental outlook as well. Cleaned up the diet completely. And was able to feel like I was actually making some progress. So that started to be good. From a mental standpoint, I almost think the phrase fake it till you make it kind of applies to this kind of stuff, because even once you have some goals and you're maybe making your way toward them, it's not like you're going to feel that way all the time. You're going to have highs and lows throughout the day, throughout the weeks, but the more positive you can stay about it, and especially in front of other people, I think is very important. So not letting yourself just dwell on the darkness and, that self-loathing or whatever it is, because there's all things associated. There's a bunch of shoulda, coulda, wouldas, what ifs, all that stuff too, and it doesn't really matter at this point. And so just don't let that mindset drag on. Really find a way to try and stay positive, stay focused, and even if you don't feel it, make yourself say it and make your face look that way, and it will start to change over time. And then, of course, once you are being able to be more active, whatever it is, again, if it's a foot that's messed up or a leg, you still got 3 other limbs. If it's your hand, one hand, both hands, there's just always ways to start getting stuff done and be able to be active. But definitely being able to differentiate between pain and discomfort, especially around the injury, is huge. So I know I tend to push the lines a little bit on this stuff, but I'm also very pretty in tune with my body and always have been. So for me, once I could start kind of bending and gripping with my finger, the more I could grip and not have a sensation of pain, the better, because you're also rewiring that connection. And so, but on the flip side of that, making sure that I'm not putting so much strain on, ligaments and tendons and the bone, of course, that has not been loaded for 8 weeks at this point, or whatever it is, 6 weeks. So making sure to take that slow and really kind of check in and make sure, okay, yeah, it's a little bit uncomfortable because I'm kind of getting stuff stretched, or I'm applying way too much load or weight or range of motion to this, and that actually hurts. So we want to make sure that as you're going through this, obviously you're not just setting yourself up to move backwards. And of course, training what you can train. Again, for me, hand is pretty easy outside of the upper body stuff, but the rest of it, I could get on a stationary bike. Couldn't really row, couldn't ski erg, but I could strap a sled to me and go for a mile walk. I could once, it actually took a little bit for me to be able to get out and run again, just because the arm swing motion was quite a bit of movement on the finger. And so I didn't want to mess with that until I got pins out. Once those came out, I was able to start running and stuff like that. So you do maybe got to be a little bit creative, especially if you don't have access to a gym. And there's always a bunch of stuff you're able to do, even out in the garage or in the house. I can load up a backpack or a bag or wear a weight vest, throw that on, go for a walk if I want to get a little bit more load-bearing exercise, stuff like that. So coming in, last couple things here, being patient. So, it is what it is. It takes time, and allowing yourself the space for that. Trying to embrace the time off if possible. It's definitely a shift from normal activity, especially for me. Summers for us is usually go, go, go. We're riding all the time, or as much as we can. Weekdays we're usually here at the gym, but that changed. Dane's still out riding a lot of the time, so I've been, participating in the trip but not the riding, and trying to do other things while they're out for 7-8 hours on the bike. I'll go for a hike, or if I can, mountain bike, just because that's a lot less impactful and the speeds are a lot slower, so I feel fairly safe on those. For me, I love to read, so that wasn't something new, but it's also something I've been able to spend a little bit more time doing. So whatever it is, trying to embrace it and find other ways to occupy your time. Like I said, if maybe you've got things that you haven't been able to get into, reading might be one, writing, journaling, listening to podcasts, audiobooks, all those things. So there's always an upside. There's plenty of things to do, even if you're on a couch. There's so many good books and sources of information out there that yeah, it's a shame to spend all this time just in a dark place, and then when you are able to get back out of it, you're worse off than where you were when you went in. So it sucks any way you look at it, but once you can get past those first couple weeks, I think, and start to reframe it in your mind, there can be a lot of good things that can come out of it from a self-growth standpoint. So I think doing your best to hold on to that, look toward the future, and set yourself up for the best success when you are able to get back out doing what you want to do. Yeah. Anyways, a little bit of my experience. I'm about 9.5 weeks out at this point. Still not full back to riding ability. I just got on the trials bike this week, and that's about right. I feel pretty good on the trials just because it's easier to get off and bail. The speeds are slower, and obviously I'm pretty terrible, so the obstacles are not that massive. And so it's kind of a good way to break it in for me and get back to it. So hopefully going to start getting out on some trails soon. I think the hardest part is going to be just kind of trying to ease back in. Just my hand alone has been insane, how soft it's gotten. And so just trying to be hyper aware of that and not, feel like I'm going to be able to get out on the bike for long periods of time right off the bat. I got to ease back in and take it slow. So anyways, hoping to get back to that soon. So dealing with the injury, overcoming injury, never fun. Hopefully this gives a little bit of insight. It definitely, at least for me, has been an interesting little journey, and hopefully this will be able to help anybody out there a little bit that's gone through something that's been less than advantageous. So thanks for listening, and catch you next time.